and they don't know where we are. All right, so we're live on YouTube, and hopefully people will start coming in. When you go to my YouTube channel, there's a video that's live, and it's you and I. So hopefully they should be able to figure out once they see that to click on it. And then I'm going to put it up on my TV screen so that I can see how we look and see if anything needs to be adapted.
Will we look like this to them with you on
Yeah,
top?
I have it set up so that it's both of us together on screen, and that from time to time I'll maybe focus it on you more. But oh yeah, you can hear it in the background. I better turn my remote off. There we go. So and then I've got the chat. I'm going to click on the video so that I can see the live chat, and hopefully in a few minutes we'll see. Oh, 4 are watching already. So that's great. We've got 4 people right away.
Great. I'm going to turn off a fan here.
Okay. I can't hear it though. If you need it, it's okay. So for those of you who've just tuned in, please go to that little red triangle in the bottom right-hand corner and hit that subscribe button for me. I'm going to be doing a lot more live streams. This is our second book talk, and we're here with Leslie Lawrence, who is the author of The Death of Fred Astaire, which is a book about her life story and her life outside the lines. So go ahead, Leslie, and tell us a little bit about your book.
Oh, we're there already. Okay, well,
yeah, we've got 3 viewers. We don't want to disappoint them.
This is what it looks like. And are you later going to ask me how I started to write it?
Probably I'll ask you well, I can ask you now, what prompted you to write it?
Okay, because I have a story. I did not set out to write a book. My training and my history is that as a fiction writer, and I finished my second novel right before my son was born, and I had this sense that no more novels for a very long time. I wouldn't have the frame of mind to sustain something. But at that point, a little bit afterwards, well, I had my child, who might be on this call, I'm not sure, who's now 31. And I conceived him, and from the very beginning, his co-mother was going to be my partner, and this was 1988, and that was a kind of daring and unusual thing to do at that point. And I had a friend, Kathy Aguero, who was editing an anthology on what she called the multicultural experience. And I guess a lot of it was about, race and religion and class, but I guess sexuality and new kinds of families was considered a different culture, I guess.
Yeah, back then, for sure.
I hadn't really thought about writing nonfiction because I didn't think there was anything that unusual about my life. But at this point, I realized, well, this is unusual. So I wrote the first essay for this anthology. And then I just, over the years, wrote essays as I had ideas. I wasn't conceiving of it as a book. And after about 15 years, I thought, and none of my fiction had gotten published as a book, so I was discouraged there. But I thought, well, these are enough essays maybe to make a book. And then I thought, I read through them and I thought, well, really, they have nothing in common. And then I started to think, well, really, they're all about the very same thing. I had both contradictory thoughts. And I began to see these common themes that ran through them. And then in the process of trying to put together a book, I tried to put them in an order and make certain connections that were missing, but they were not part of the original plan.
Cool. We have a question already. So I think this is from my niece. Good evening, everyone. What kind of advice would you give an aspiring writer?
Well, first, since it's your niece especially, I want to thank Kelly for doing this and for being such a wonderful treasure. for the whole Cambridge, Boston arts community. She's given
Thank
so many
you.
people so many opportunities and brought us all together, even during the pandemic, or especially. So, advice to a young writer: read a lot. Think about how you read and how you make meaning of what you read, and understand that you read to feel less alone in the world, I think. And then when you write, remember that your reader wants that same feeling. They want authenticity. And so I guess probably the simplest, best advice I got for writing, it goes for fiction in a funny way too. I was going to say, to tell the truth, dig for honesty, and you can do that in fiction too, in your own way, and write a lot. And when you're stuck, write about why you're stuck. That can really help.
Yeah, you can really write about just about anything, actually.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is don't try to be writerly.
Yeah.
That people
good
fall on their face all the time. So if you try to be you without affectation, and you learn your craft, which takes many, many years, as any dancer will tell you, little by little, the authenticity and the you-ness and the wisdom you have around words starts to come together.
Cool. No, that's great advice. And then the authenticity, I think, really people intuitively can feel when something isn't authentic, and they can feel when it's not, real, and you're not being real, or like you said, trying to be writerly. I noticed you write a lot about dance and dance classes in Boston, but also even before that. Tell us a little bit about how you started dancing and how that played a part in your life. Since this is a dance channel, we want to definitely.
Right. Well, there's actually a photo, and the book has photos, which is really fun. And this is I don't know how I dug this up, that I guess because I'm a clutterer, but I found a photo from, I think I was no more than 6 or 7, dressed up for my little dance recital. But I was a chubby kid, and I was not particularly coordinated, and I was never really good or confident. I did take one very interesting dance class, but I was still inhibited. And in high school, there were a lot of fun dancers, and I was very worried that I didn't know how to do it right. But then in college, during orientation, I just went to some party, and I realized nobody was really looking at me, and I could just have fun.
Yeah, it's true. We're more self-conscious, and we think everybody's focused on us, but really they're worried about how they look most of the time.
Well, it happened to be sort of a disco, and I think the people running the music were African American, and I don't know what role that played, but there was a very good vibe in the room, and it really freed me. And then I started taking some modern dance at college, and I loved that. And basically, then I quit for a long time, and then in my actually in the process of writing one of the essays in this book, which looks at my artistic education from many angles. I'm somebody who dabbles a lot and takes, I started thinking about how much I love to dance, and I started Googling, and I got connected somehow and started taking a class from Joan Green, a wonderful dance teacher. She at one point directed Back Porch Dance in the Cambridge, Boston area. And it turned out she was teaching an improv class or modern dance class right around the corner from me. And I was in my early 50s, and I thought, I'm too old to do this. And everybody said, no, you're not. No, you're not.
Yeah, I know dancers who are well into their 80s, and they're still dancing and doing it really well. So, I think people think dance is only for the young. And I think maybe in some ways it's geared toward that, but really it's for all ages, and it's, something we can all enjoy.
I think in other cultures, there's a lot more permission. I remember seeing, what is this, older women flamenco dancers who were, you know, considered at their prime in a sense. You know, they had something deep in them. And it's really sad that our culture has de-emphasized the beauty of of age, but I think it's coming back a little bit.
Yeah. We have another question on the live chat. And if you're on the YouTube channel right now, we have 30 people watching, which is great.
Oh my, fantastic. Hello, everybody.
I know, it's wonderful. 31, just one more person just joined. So go ahead and look to the right and you'll see a chat. It says top chat and it's along the side, and you can type a question in and Leslie will answer your questions. Or you can just say hello, because we don't really know who's out there. So just say howdy or type us a question. So James asks, may I ask how you chose the title, The Death of Fred Astaire? What made you choose that title?
Yeah, well, I might, if there's time, I might read that part. You know, when I wrote the very first essay, James, I don't know when you came on the air, but that was about my decision in my 30s. I had had a heterosexual past. When I was around 30, I fell in love with a woman, and then later another woman, and then it was time for me to have children, and I thought, gee, how am I going to do that? And I knew it was technically possible to bear a child, but you know, I didn't know if I was ready to make the leap, if I could embrace a different vision for my life than all of those Disney movies and romances I'd seen. And I had a very close relationship with my parents. I was in agony about how were they going to react to this idea. And so it was a long struggle. And one day I heard on NPR that Fred Astaire had died, and I started to cry. And I didn't understand why I was so upset, because he wasn't, you know, I liked him, but he wasn't really my generation. And and the announcer, somebody who's no longer on, said something like, it's the end of an era, the end of style of dancing cheek to cheek. That's what really got me. And I realized all these images I had of men and women dancing were kind of, you know, I realized that I had made my decision and that I was saying goodbye to these icons of the heterosexual world. And I realized that, you know, Fred wasn't just Fred for me. He was the Fred and Ginger duo. I don't know if I made that clear.
Yeah, the ballroom dancing, the heterosexual,
Yeah, and there was a great little analogy, because I realized I was going into this enterprise, very important enterprise of raising a child, and I didn't have hardly any role models. I didn't have any manuals. I didn't have any novels about, you know, what happens when this, there really was very, very little on it. And so then I realized, well, I'd be making it up as I go along. And that was such a good analogy to what improvisation in dance or theater is like. You have to, you know, there's no script, there's no choreography. So that was kind of helped me think about the different threads in the book, and the fact that all of us really are improvising all the time. But you know, if you decide to take a path that's new and not that common, then all the more you make it up as you go along.
Absolutely. Yeah. Life is one big improvisation. We have lots of questions. This is great. Okay to Stretch says, have you combined your writing with your dancing?
I guess the answer is no. You mean, I've thought about it. Well, sometimes in the classes I take, we have an opportunity to use spoken word. And you know, at one point I thought I'm going to create a performance piece myself that includes dance and words and visuals. And I realize I'm not Kelly Donovan, and I don't have the I don't have the technical skill. I don't have the studio. But mostly I don't have the chutzpah or the courage to pull that off. And so I decided to take that project and put it right back on the page. But maybe someday. I have done some theater improv, which is so close to dance in some ways. Yeah.
Cool. People are throwing lots of questions in. This is great. So I'm just going to say hi.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Deborah Gorlin, she said, what are the connections between your love of dance and love of words? What are the similarities you see between the two art forms, and what are the differences?
Deborah, what a great question. What a hard one. Well, one thing I think maybe the link between dance and words is music and rhythm. And I've learned a lot by studying music. I've learned a lot about how I want my sentences to go, the feel, and even beyond music, the common denominator is energy and tension and force. And I think when I write, I feel it in my body, and I feel a certain, this is interesting, you know, especially when you're trying to figure out how to end a piece, a story, or even a poem, it's had a certain question throughout, a certain kind of tension, and you want to bring it to some sort of resolution, but not too much of a resolution. And I kind of feel that, I don't know if you can see, but there's something inside me that's working for the feeling in my body of how much resolution or how much change or surprise. And I'll say one more thing, Deborah. I studied something called effort shape or Laban notation. The dancers out there might, Kelly, you know about all that?
Yeah, definitely.
And when I did, I thought I finally discovered the common denominator of all art forms, I felt, because this was before there was video, and you needed to have a visual language for capturing dance so that it wouldn't be lost for generations. And there were these little diagrams, and they recorded the kind of movement, where it was in space, whether it was percussive, whether it was flowing. And all those questions, I think, inform both dance and writing and any art form, probably.
Yeah, because when you're reading a book, you feel at least I do, I feel a sense of rhythm and a sense of pacing and a sense of kind of ebbs and flows of energy in the words. And that's kind of what I work with when I'm dancing too. Yeah, so I love that. I love that connection.
Oh, good.
That's
there's
great.
punctuation,
Really
there's white space. All of that is really about pauses and breathing and rhythm and taking a break.
That's great. Cool. Oh, okay to stretch is Karen Bray. Hey, Karen. Let's see. Do we have another question? Let me see. There's a whole bunch of
hellos.
People are saying hello. I'll just read the names out. Remy's here, Albert Cook, Barbara, Leslie, another Leslie Ullman.
Oh, well,
thanks for joining us, everybody.
Leslie Ullman's also a ballroom dancer, I believe. Hi, Leslie.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Hi, everyone.
The Fred Astaire, maybe that was what attracted them. Do me a favor, everybody, and if you are tuning in, see that little red square in the bottom right hand? That's the subscribe button for my YouTube channel. Just go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and there's a whole bunch of free classes and free videos, and we do a monthly event which will take place on Saturday, April 24th. It's the fourth Saturday of every month, called the virtual Speakeasy. And sorry, I'm looking at the computer as I talk to the people there, but I should look here. So it's a monthly event, and we invite poets, dancers, any kind of performer to come in and do a presentation during the virtual Speakeasy. So feel free to drop in And, you know, we have an open mic portion of the evening. So feel free to drop in on April 24th at 8 p.m. It's on Zoom as opposed to, but you can watch it on the live stream on the YouTube channel as well. If you just want to be an audience member, that's great. I wanted to ask you a few more questions about what's the process of writing a book and getting the book published.
Oh. Well,
how long does that take usually?
Well, I mean, the essays in this book, I mean, I was cover a good 15 years of writing, not full time. I had a life, I was teaching, I was raising a child, but I'm very slow. I mean, I'm really amazed at all these people who've come out with books about the pandemic and books about Trump, you know, with just like 20 seconds after it happened, it seems to me. But I'm very slow, I'm obsessive. And then getting it published is required a lot of patience. But I will say that I belong to a big organization called Associated Writing Programs, and their conference has usually about 15,000 people and a huge room, convention center kind of room that has lots and lots of publishers and magazine publishers and small presses and university presses. And it's true that networking really is really important, and being a good literary citizen and trying to help out other people, and they try to help you out. And I mean, I had, I think one of my friends, Robin Becker, is on the call, and she really was sometimes my ambassador. She would go, or she was less shy than I, and she would go around this book room with my book and say, I think you'll really love this book. So eventually I scored with the university press, State University of New York. And that's my opportunity to say that even though the book has gotten very expensive because it's printed on demand now. However, until the end of June, if you go to SUNY Press, SUNY, SUNYpress.com, and you look up my book, there's a place to put in a coupon code, and it's XALL21. And that gets you the author's discount. So it cuts it by almost half.
Oh, wow.
If you, if that doesn't work for some reason, or you don't write it down, you can email me and I'll give it to you again. I think it's up on the Facebook post, but it's hard to read.
And is it all caps or lowercase, or does it matter?
It's all caps, XALL21.
Okay. I'm going to put this right in the chat so that people can see it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So do you have other projects that you're thinking about writing? Is writing a part of your everyday life? Are you working on something specific, or what's in the works?
Well, in this book, in the long essay, I do describe this incident with my interesting dance teacher when I was around, how old was I? I was around 10 years old. And in writing that, I recalled that she had assigned me a piece of music, the Goldberg Variations by Bach. And I had hated it at the time. I thought, oh, who can dance to this? And the reason I put that in is because I was looking at the question about how our tastes and appreciation change over the course of a life. And about 10 years after that introduction to the piece, I started listening to it again and I fell in love with it. So something had happened in that 10 years that allowed this complete turnaround in my perception. So in the process of writing about that, I realized I'm just not done with the Goldberg Variations. They are a fascinating, they're a keyboard piece for those who don't know it, and it's rather long. And it's a theme and variation form, but a very sophisticated and subtle one. And so now I'm writing what I think is another book in the form of what's called a lyric essay. There are a couple of pieces in this book that look at ask a question. I think most good writing asks a question, but I think part of what an essay is it means to try, and it shows a mind at work exploring, looking at a question from this angle and this angle, and you don't really have to come to a definitive solution, or answer. You're just illuminating things along the way. So I have a lot of interest in this piece of music and how it is received by other people and how my relationship to it changed. And in the course of thinking and writing about this, my father died, and I was very close to my father. And he was the one who introduced me to classical music, but he never liked Bach. It occurred to me in some ways I'm writing to him to try to get him to like this piece of music. But I'm also kind of chronicling some of his last days and months. And I think the piece is partly about mortality, and it's a very much a journey kind of piece where you end up where you started. The last section is exactly like the first, which is not exactly like life, but a little bit like life. So if that sounds confusing, it's still pretty confused in my mind, but I've been working on it for a long time, and you'd be amazed. I don't know if everybody knows about this, but if you can put something in your computer for a Google alert, and anytime, like if you want to say Kelly Donovan, anytime any Kelly Donovan is written about in anywhere on Google, they will send you a little reference. So I have discovered, particularly during the pandemic, that the Goldberg's variations come up a lot, including when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. Somebody who really admired her told the story of how they connected at a party over their shared love of the Goldberg. So it's teaching me a lot about how that piece of music also works throughout the culture. So it's a big piece, that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's cool. Why I'll never finish it, probably.
I have a question from Sue Fendrick, and she's asking us, what are the relationships to improv impermanence on one hand and refining, creating something fixed on the other hand in your experience with both writing and dance? Similarities, differences? That's a great question.
That is a fascinating and beautiful question. Thank you, Susan. Well, you're right to catch that. The thing about books, at least when they're in their print version as opposed to online, is they don't change. I think part of what you're really asking, Susan, is something that's interested me very much. That when you write something about your own life, which I mostly do, it sort of becomes the true story. Or at least other people think, okay, that's the story. But as you get older, or maybe in a different mood, you would write the story differently. And so that very fixed thing is in some ways a false thing, because it's so static, and our thoughts about our lives and, whether we want to end a piece on a happy note or a sad note might, depend on where we are in life and our perspective. So in some ways, they are very opposite, the written word and the improvisational process. As a dancer, I'm not really interested in choreographed work. I like watching it, but I don't think I'm good at learning it, and I don't think I'm a good enough dancer. So I'm really more excited by the being in the moment and making choices in the moment. Just the other thing I would say about that is, in the book, I quote a guy, Stephen Nachmanovich, and he talks about improvisation as you know, I had never really thought about writing as improvisation, but it certainly is. Eventually it gets fixed in form, but the process can feel very similar to the process of being true to the moment and paying attention. I think it's that deep focus that you need in both the writing and the improvising. That's the common denominator. I think you should get these people at all your events because they ask such great questions.
I know, I love it. So there are a bunch of folks, Nan D, Rod Kessler. Oh, Rod's asking a question. Are you part of a writing group, informal workshop, or totally solo these days? Do you bounce your work off anyone?
Hi, Rod. I am totally solo these days. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I lost my very best reader. She died in her 80s, not of COVID, but Barbara Greenberg was her name. Right now, I kind of feel like I know what I'm doing as much as I will definitely show my work to a lot of people and a lot of people who are on this call probably. But I'm afraid to do it too soon because I think the work is a mess. It's a little bit clearer in my head and I want to wait till I get it really clear. I do teach in my home, so that keeps me on my toes, but I don't show my own writing in process to that group usually.
Tell me a little bit about the subtitle, which is The Life Outside the Lines. What prompted you to add that to the title, and what does that mean to you?
Well, I stole that subtitle from Joan Green. The name of her dance class was Dancing Outside the Lines.
Yep, that's right. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And so back to my decision to have a child in a lesbian relationship, that definitely felt like outside the lines. And I think that, yeah, I've lived a fairly adventurous, I mean, you know, very bourgeois compared to some lives, but very adventurous compared to others. I've not really felt like I fit in a box. And I tried to be true to myself. And I think that's where the outside the lines comes from. And as I said, what?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, when I tried to learn to dance by doing steps, I was terrible. And it was only when I sort of let go of that and consulted my, you know, got inside my body. And then it was pretty wild, but it was more interesting.
Yeah, when I perform solo, I always improvise now. I used to choreograph pieces, but I feel it's more real. It feels more authentic to me to just kind of go with the impulse in improvisation. So,
well, you know, one of the reasons, I mean, my taste in dance, it's always exciting to see a gorgeous dancer, but it doesn't feel as exciting to me generally to watch choreography as it does to watch improvisation or, you know, people that are a little more on the edge. If you get really, really good, you know, you have to make it perfect every time. And something's lost with that, I think.
Yeah, I do think when I see choreographed work, sometimes it looks a little placed. It looks a little like it's gotten a little stale energetically. Sometimes not. It really depends on the dancer. There's certain dancers who can make it always look fresh. And there's a lot of dancers maybe that doesn't come through, you know, in quite the same way.
Yeah, yeah.
James is asking, have you felt less outside the lines, especially as time goes on with the Supreme Court cases in 2013 and 15, and then compared to the last 4 years with Trump in office?
Another great question. You know what made me feel less out? The very thing that I first did that I thought would put me outside the lines, and that is having a child in this configuration, turned out to be the thing that made me feel very much in step, because the challenges of raising a child, no matter what situation you're in, I think they're fairly somewhat common denominator. You know, you have to nurture and you have to teach and you have to keep safe. And so I felt very much like I had joined a large swath of the population and of history. And yes, and that forced me to become more comfortable with myself. I am bisexual, so sometimes I can, you know, cross those lines, but in general, I do think it's the culture has changed a lot, at least in Cambridge. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the country, but
yeah.
Younger people, when I came out with this book, I was afraid they'd think, what is she making such a fuss about? Because, you know, who cares? You know, anything goes. But that certainly wasn't the case back then. But yes, I think a lot of people feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about that as we were getting ready to do this, and thinking about how the world has changed and how there may be young people out there who don't realize what it was like back in the 60s, because I know, you know, being gay or bi or anything like that, it was classified as a mental illness until the early 70s. So what was it like?
And you could be arrested in certain situations.
Yeah, and a lot of people, you know, they sent their you know, they had to go to the mental hospital or something. I mean, they were really, it was pretty harsh. What was your now, when, I don't know if you came out before or after that was changed, but what was it like just being in that climate? Because I was too little to remember that. I was only, you know, in elementary school when that changed. So I don't know what that's like.
I think it had changed. I'm not sure what the date is. I'm sure people on the call know.
Early 70s, I think. 72,
yeah, it must have been. I think my struggles were mostly internal. They were less about how I very rarely was treated badly or even had an eyebrow raised, but I struggled internally. I wasn't sure what was me. I mean, you know, it was still scary, you know, and I felt marginalized, like, you know, bring your, before the word partner, there was, I think, significant other. That was a good step. But before that, there was spouse. Well, my partner wasn't my spouse, or your husband or wife, or your girlfriend or boyfriend, you know. So there were a lot of very subtle things that made me think, what about me? And I actually feel like people who don't have children, and many of my friends have chosen not to have children, I feel like they might feel that a lot. Before I had children, you know, every little billboard with like the Kodak thing was the family, and everybody's going home to their families, or everything's family. And there are a lot of people who don't have much of a family or don't have a family nearby. And I think that they are still very marginalized.
Yeah, I definitely feel that, because I've chosen not to get married and not to have children. And it's very strange. In New York, it's a little less strange because there are more single people there, I think. But yeah, it's very much a family-oriented climate, I think, in just about any place you go. And once people have kids, they sort of disappear. You don't see them again for years. So it's always a strange change in a friendship, you know, when people hit that phase. If you don't choose to do that, you sort of have to go find your new friends who don't have kids.
I mean, I said this when, I don't know if everyone was on the call at the beginning, but I stopped dancing when I had a child, and I didn't start again until he was about, I don't know, 10 or 12. And that was, I don't know if I could have done it differently, but what a big mistake. You know, I just think everybody should dance all the time. It's a
and you know, it's
part of being human.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a way to celebrate life. It's awesome. So I'm just kind of, you know, asking, oh, I see Karen Campbell is here. Adore the Goldberg variations.
Oh, yeah.
That's great. Thanks. Thanks for that comment. Let's see. Oh, here's some more. Love your comments. Roof Dog. John Saroof.
Oh, I know John. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. I think this is a question. I should wear my reading glasses. A story in one moment being the truth in that moment, but it might be different later. Do you stick to the truth, or are you interested in pushing the edges? Sounds like you're trying to be more authentic.
I really do try to stick to the truth with one little caveat. First of all, memory is faulty. It really is. You know, all you need is a sibling to say, do you remember when I fell down the stairs, or when mommy went in? And they don't, and they remember it completely differently. Or
yeah, for sure.
And you know, and you do have to write dialogue and stuff, and nobody really, you know, you might think you remember. I think I could swear, I will swear I know certain phrases that were said, but you know, as far as a whole extended dialogue. The other thing, the way I like to tell my students is, if you're writing nonfiction, you're making a contract with the reader that this is the truth, and they feel betrayed when it's not. But if you said you were wearing a green dress and it turns out you were wearing a red dress and it's really not important to the piece, I think that's a forgivable switch. And sometimes, you know, if it's not about something that is part of the essence of the piece, that doesn't betray your sense of emotional truth or intellectual honesty, I think those things are more important than occasionally, you know, maybe you were 13 and not 12, you know, if you get that wrong, not such a big deal.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me a little bit about what your sense of the Boston, because I think there's this perception in Boston that there really isn't any dancing. It's a music and sports town, and people don't really know about what's happening. What's your perception on the Boston dance scene? Is there a dance scene? And if so, what variety of things are offered in Boston?
There is a huge dance scene. And so, I mean, it depends. First of all, if you want to see, you know, great dancers, and it's not a pandemic, you'll be able to see a lot of them here. I saw Mark Morris here, you know, before anybody, I think. Lots of great people come here. But the thing that I love the most about the Boston dance scene is there's a lot of smaller stuff that's not as well known, that's very accessible, more affordable. And then the thing, I'm sort of going down the hierarchy from the most professional to, there are a lot of companies that started here that do fantastic work, like yours, and you were in New York too, I think.
Yeah, I split my time half and half, but yeah, thanks.
There are a lot of opportunities to perform if you're not a professional level, and there's a lot of enthusiasm among the people to go attend and support those performances. And I think the best thing of all is there are a lot of opportunities to dance. And I mean, I think there's something called like Boston dance or something, but I mean, there's ballroom, there's swing, there's butoh, there's freestyle dance, there's contact improv, there's contra dancing, there's square dancing, there's English Renaissance dancing. And you just have to find the websites or join various group websites, and you could dance every day of the week, and affordable and not competitive and joyous. So I encourage you to check it out, and you're never too old to start or too young.
Yeah, and I'll just throw out a few things that people can, I'm going to type them into the chat as I go along. There's the Boston Dance Alliance website, which is one great place to find out about all these different genres of dance. People post performances, classes, everything, lectures, anything that might be of interest to dancers, professional, all the way, you know, down to amateur, whatever people want to do. There's also a Google group that we have started, which is DAN-Boston. And the DAN stands for Dance Action Network Boston. And you can subscribe to that by typing in DAN-Boston +subscribe at Google Groups. HOMEBODY.com, and I just typed that in the chat. And you have to reply to confirm and all of that. But that's a really great email list where people post all kinds of different things. And as far as performance opportunities, we have something I mentioned a little bit earlier about the virtual speakeasy. You know, right now we're in the middle of a pandemic. The theaters aren't really doing a whole lot. I think Dance Complex is going to do some outdoor performances again when it gets a little bit warmer. I've seen a few dance classes in the park. I don't know much about those, but certainly, you know, if you want to come in and see some dance, I'm doing regular dance videos. They're on the YouTube channel. You can hit the little red button in the corner to subscribe. And the virtual speakeasy has an open mic component for poets and dancers and any other kind of performer. I've sort of broadened it to different kinds of performers, but people can do a live video on the spot, or they can pre-film something and send me the video, and we can screen it that way. So even in the middle of a pandemic, dancers are still dancing, and we're still keeping up with all of this stuff. So I wanted to give you, Leslie, any last you know, things that you want to say about your book? Anything? Maybe tell us what's the easiest way to get it. I think we typed in the publisher's web address, which was sunypress.com, with a discount code that's up above in the chat, and I'll put that in the website as well. In the chat of the comment section of this video later on in the description. But is there anything else you want to tell folks about where to get the book? Anything else that you want folks to know?
Well, someone turned me on to Alibris. Am I saying that right? Alibris, something like that. It's an alternative to Amazon where you can get just used books. The downside is that you can't get them the next day, but the prices are still very good, and it's a good way to take a little bit of power away from Amazon, which is ruling the world. The price of the book has gone up, so I do suggest that you go to the publisher and get the discount code, or get a used copy, or if you're feeling flush, go to your local independent bookstore and call them up first and ask them for it, and they can get it for you.
Cool. Awesome. So, and you have a website. What's the address?
I do. It's leslielawrencewriter.com.
All right, and I'm typing that in. So there's a link with a whole description if you want to read more about what the book is all about. I really enjoyed reading this. I know you sent me a free copy a while back, and I read in the bathtub, and I just sat there and got pruny. I was really, really enjoying reading it. So I really enjoyed it, and it was fun to read about, you know, some folks I know too, you know, the Joan Green's classes, and you know, it was just really a good read, really straightforward writing, which is how I like it. And I just, you know, authentic, like you said, I really enjoyed it so much. So thank you so much for being here. If anybody has any last questions for us, go ahead and throw them in the chat. I put a couple things up there, and
I can't tell who's here, but I hope I hope you'll get in touch with me and let me know you were here. It's really fun to get back. And Kelly sent me a postcard after she read the book, and I was telling her before we started, you know, how rare that is and how much it meant to me. So it's always nice to tell people you appreciate them. And I appreciate you guys for being here.
Yes, thanks so much for being here, everybody. And yeah, so I think that's great. We'll put it there. This will be, if you want to, you know, if you missed the beginning, go ahead and go to the YouTube channel, and you can watch the live stream from the very beginning. If you missed, maybe if you came in late or whatever, it'll be up there permanently. So you can go ahead and take a look at that anytime. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I've got free classes. I've got videos, dance videos I'm making. I've got the virtual speakeasy from the past few months are up there. And we'll keep live streaming the virtual speakeasy, so you can come back on April 24th at 8 p.m. and watch it here, or also the Zoom link is in the description box. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us and asking great questions.
And thank you, Kelly.
Leslie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll see you hopefully out there dancing.
Great. Bye-bye.